we're back for another casual conversation with the Classic, and I got a co-host with me this week, Sock Monkey Mike, and we got a very, 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 very special guest, WWE's very own Drew Gulak. How are you doing today?
Hi, thank you so much for having me. I'm doing great. We just had SmackDown in Hershey, Pennsylvania, and those are always good shows. I get to kind of come back home and see the local crowds and how they turned out, and it was a sold out crowd, so that was very nice to see that, and very motivating.
It must be like a big change after a couple of years of the Thunderdome to get back on the road in front of large crowds like that again, eh?
It's night and day, man. I got to be the very first match back in front of people.
Oh wow!
Yeah, wow. When I believe it was Raw at the time when we had just started having fans back from the Thunderdome, and yeah, it was really special, really, really nice. It makes a huge difference. Like falling down in front of no people hurts more.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, it was good. It's been great. Great.
I'm glad to hear it. So I like to usually start these interviews with a really quick question that I like to ask, being the Wrestling Classic and having a lot of people that love nostalgia and the old school stuff. I want to ask you right off the bat, what were some of your earliest memories of professional wrestling, and who were some of your biggest influences growing up?
So my parents never really watched wrestling. They didn't really get into it. But we had a friend of the family who was like real big into it, would order all the pay-per-views and would have shows. And I must have been like 2 or 3, and I'd go over and watch the pay-per-views at their place. So, that was back like, I don't know, WrestleMania 10. It was always Hulk Hogan, and even before 10, it was like Macho Man, Randy Savage, and the Ultimate Warrior. And then came Bret the Hitman Hart later. Owen Hart, just the crazy, colorful gimmicks of that era. Undertaker getting buried alive and then dying, kind of, and getting, levitated over that stuck with me. Him putting jobbers in body bags was a big one too. Yeah. Those are my earliest memories of wrestling. And ever since then, it just kind of stuck with me, and now I do it.
That's awesome. The Undertaker's going in the Hall of Fame this year. That's a big deal. Have you had any conversations with the Undertaker in your time with the WWE? Any Undertaker stories?
Brief ones with Undertaker. He's everyone like calls him like the Godfather, kind of. Like if you see him there, you got to walk over and pay your respects. And he was always very nice, very down to earth. Anytime I've talked to him, surprisingly, not to kill the mystique, but like he's a huge presence. He's a huge presence whenever he's around. So it's always been positive, from my experiences with the Undertaker. There was one time we were backstage and just me and him sitting in a room together. I was like, "Hey, do you mind if I sit here with you?" And he's like, "I don't care." And it was just the two of us hanging out. I think I was waiting for something, and he was in the same room waiting with me. So that was like my first one-on-one experience with him. And after that, it's always been that kind of way. So that's intimidating, awesome. But really, really cool backstage.
Awesome.
Yeah. So, Drew, once again, it's great to talk to you as per usual. I know we haven't talked.
Brother.
Yeah. Hey, I got to respect the drip god over here. But one of the things I do have to talk to you about first is that you're a huge video game person. We've noticed that with your Twitch channel and all that. But it was recently announced that you were a part of WWE 2K22, which is coming up. Yep. And you're also a part as the head trainer for the tutorial of the game. Can you talk to us about what it was like really working with 2K and all that?
So I guess it's like the Drew-torial or the Goo-torial or whatever you want to call it. But no, they were awesome. That was my first time really getting to participate in like constructing a video game in some way. So that for me was like really cool because like I'm a huge gamer. I grew up with the Nintendo and all the way till now with the the PS5 and the Switch and stuff like. So to like actually get in there and dude, all right. So do you guys remember a TV show called Nick Arcade?
I do. Yeah.
You remember Nick Arcade? We're like They would just like play video games, like occasionally it's like Sonic the Hedgehog and stuff. You're like, I know that one, and then like at the very end, they would get like dragged into this room and disappear, and then show up on screen in a video game. And it's like all green screen behind. It's just like wild, right? But like I don't know. I've always wanted to actually do that kind of thing. Like I wish I was a kid on Nick Arcade.
Yeah.
And, my experience working with the 2K team was like awesome, man. Like you know, the story about the last game, you know, with the studio dropping out and them just kind of scrambling and throwing stuff together for that 2K20 game that came out. It was a bummer for like especially the hardcore gamers, you know, a big bummer. And after 19, like they crushed it with 19. So they took the year off and decided to really like go back and make a game from scratch and find these really passionate people who for the last 2 years have just been like trying to make this as good as possible. So my experience working with them, did some voiceover stuff and did some filming and things like that. And it was amazing to me how much detail oriented they were. Like they were pulling up these lines that they had just jotted down as notes, and some of them are from like some of my very first promos that I had on 205 Live.
Oh wow!
Yeah,
they were that in tune.
Yeah, like stuff right before the PowerPoint presentation started happening. Like I started getting these memories. Because I'm like, where did this go? Oh my god, you guys looked up this you went on the network at the time and wrote all this stuff down. You know, like so that was just me. That was just my part. You know, they have a lot of the other guys doing these big roles and stuff, and Rey Mysterio is a perfect example of that. So like if they can put that much love into like just trying to make sure, you know, my bit is right for the game, like imagine how good the rest of this is going to be.
Right.
You know, and it's really refreshing to get to work with people like that. You know, in a big company situation and with a product. And so yeah, my experiences was very positive.
That's awesome. There is something in the game where it is like a tutorial, right? Like it's a thing they have to get through or something, correct?
I don't want to spoil it.
I mean, there's rumors around the internet. There's something out there.
Yeah, I don't want to spoil it because it has not been released yet. But
okay.
I am very hands-on in trying to make sure you guys do things the correct way.
Okay. Moving forward really quickly, off that last question, I do also want to ask them, like, did you have a favorite game, like a wrestling game growing up that you played probably the most?
Let's see, No Mercy and Wrestlemania 2000, like the N64 generation. That was like the winning combination for me as far as like a game, you know, system, engine, whatever you want to call it. Before then, like I don't know, I dabbled with like the Super Nintendo ones and like the NES ones. You know, there wasn't a lot of depth to them. It was cool to see the characters, but there wasn't a lot of depth to them. And then like
there wasn't, no.
Yeah, N64, like the commercial for WWE Raw or Warzone, WWE Warzone. It was like the one with Stone Cold on the cover, and he had the hands up and stuff like that. And then Attitude came out, and that was a little more wild, but it was a little glitchy. And then like, yeah, once WrestleMania 2000 came out, it was just like the perfect balance. They just nailed it. You know, based on those, it was a WCW NWO Revenge systems, and you know, inspired by like the Fire Pro games and stuff like that. It was just that was my first foray into like real.
Outside of wrestling, like, what were your favorite video games growing up then?
I mean, like the Marios and the Zeldas. Like I was a Nintendo kid. You know, like my friends had Sega, and like I got to go over and play Genesis and like I don't know the more hardcore versions of Mortal Kombat. You know, like that was always fun. But you know, the Mario games, the Zelda games, stuff like that. Those were always the ones I drifted towards. The wrestling games were great too.
I always found when I got older after a while.
Awesome. Which one?
When I got older after a while, we went to the flea market and we bought another Super Nintendo because I grew up with the normal Nintendo, Super Nintendo, like the same little generational thing, and we tried playing like the original Super Mario, and I felt like just because like games moved so much throughout time, like it's a very simple just hit the button once type of situation, and we were trying too hard, and we just kept dying like right at the beginning because we were overthinking like how many buttons to hit at a time. And I'm like, oh, it's like it was really simple, but like it was hard, but it was simple back then. Now like games have gotten so complex that I'm thinking like I had to double tap it, like and like next I'm like falling on the first fall. And it's like, oh, like how simple games used to be, yet so much fun, you know?
Dude, think about it, like 3 lives in a game over. You got to restart from the beginning.
Yeah.
You know, and then like nowadays there's like a lot of games you never die. Like you play Red Dead,
now it's like I'll save every 30 seconds. Yeah, it'll automatically save, and then I'll do a manual save also, just because I'm crazy.
Oh, it's crazy. I know it was different. That's true, because like if you play a game like I'm currently trying to finish Red Dead 2, and I'm like every time I play that, I'm like I can die a million times and the game will never end. It's just you continue from where the checkpoint is. But yeah, if you died those 3, like it was so sad. If you were playing with like your cousin or a sibling or something, and it was like you knew you had your 3 lives, and then you would have to pass over the controller to let them go, and you're like, man, you got that game over. It's the worst feeling, because now you like have to sit there and watch them, and if they're really good, like, they're not going to die for a while.
Right? Yeah, I would do it for like World 4-2 and like Mario Brothers, and then have to restart from the beginning.
Yeah. No, it was cool to finally get to the end of Mario Bros. I remember when you got to that ship, you're like, finally, we got here. Also, so you did spend some time on NXT as well, and I want to, because I love your wrestling style, and I love it. It's just an old school, like straight up wrestling, chain wrestling, like just great wrestling. And I was curious, like, was there any influence of William Regal for you? Like, was he an influence on you at all? Did you train with him at all?
A lot of people. It's funny, like people try to guess like what my influences are, and they're never spot on. They never quite nail it. Like, my memory is.
That was Mike, by the way. Mike guessed it was William Regal. I'm just gonna throw that
out. Good guess. His was for him. Timothy Thatcher, actually. William Regal was his guy.
Okay.
Yeah, but anyway, so not that he wasn't my guy. I loved him very much, and my highlights for him really were more his character work and his performing, especially when he was, it's like the general manager days in WWE. I thought like it was just some of his best stuff ever. And when he was, even before then, when he was coming out and doing teaching people manners, and trying to be the gentleman, that's the strongest things I remember from William Regal. And then it wasn't until later that I really appreciated how good he was technically in the ring. And certainly there was a lot of his style that, I looked up to. Now he was influenced by a lot of the the heavyweight wrestlers from the World of Sport generation right before him. When I started getting into wrestling, I was trained by Chris Hero, who wrestled Cassius Ohno in NXT. And we sat down one day early, and he had DVDs of like these old World of Sport collections. And my first experience watching those was like watching the light heavyweight wrestlers like a Johnny Saint or a Steve Gray or a Mark Rocco, and they were more like the kind of the more fluid, faster paced wrestlers than like a Terry Rudge, or like an Alan Sargent, which are like kind of the guys that Regal looked up to and took from. So yeah, it's like we're cut from the same cloth kind of, but just a slightly different section,
Yeah. No, for sure. I get it. Yeah. I just like, that's cool. Yeah.
Yeah, one of the also questions that we were wondering as well is, of course, when it comes to Drew Gulak, he is known for making a better 205 Live and having that great gimmick as well. But before we get into that, I do want to talk about, because it was recently rebranded as NXT's Level Up program, which is now on Fridays, which is no longer 205 Live. And you were one of the founding fathers, actually, of 205 Live, being a part with Cedric and so many other people like Mustafa Ali, TJP, the list goes on. So like, what was it like being a part of 205 Live and being a part of a stacked, star, in the Cruiserweight division?
Every experience I had with WWE in the beginning was very surreal to me because of, the history I had watching it and growing up with it. But looking back on 205 Live, and it does not get talked about enough, is like how kind of pivotal everything that was going on with the Cruiserweight Classic happening, and then 205 Live becoming its own brand. That was kind of for like WWE and like the future of pro wrestling. And I don't mean to sound like kind of braggadocious about that. I'm saying it like, no, for real, like technologically, it was the first exclusive streaming show on the network. Then NXT UK became a thing. it was a year or two later. And for everything that like guys like CM Punk and like Bryan Danielson did, getting hired by WWE initially, being like these independent wrestlers, kind of pushing through the barriers and breaking through the glass ceiling and making it. Ultimately, it led to them wanting to do an entire tournament full of guys who are these journeymen pro wrestlers that, for the most part, the WWE universe hasn't heard about or seen. And just by luck, I happen to be affiliated with Evolve, which was one of the American locations that they scouted from.
Yeah.
And I happen to do a little bit of work with Pro Wrestling Guerrilla, and it just worked out. So I think it's kind of amazing. Like that whole cycle went through all the way up until they just rebranded NXT Level Up, and I got to be part of like that initial push to do that kind of a thing. And we didn't have any real instructions. It was just like, all right, well, they're cruiserweights, obviously. Let's see what happens. And it went the way it went, and like we did a lot of really cool stuff, and we got to be experimental. Way more than like you usually would with constraints on regular network television or cable television. And we had fun, and like we had the ultimate learning experience just being on tour with Raw and SmackDown. Like right off the bat, we didn't really sit, in the developmental system, because most of us were very tenured wrestlers. So in that sense, we were pretty lucky, and I'm super grateful for it. And I know all the other guys who were part of that show, for the most part, were very super grateful of that experience. And like, I wish there was a way to kind of like, I don't know, if I ever see anybody talk about like 205 Live in like a negative light, I wish there was a way to like sit them down and be like, no, check this out, understand like what's going on here, and like see the bigger picture. And I wish there was a way to do that, but that's not for everyone to kind of get to that point thinking about it wise, and it's fine. I'm fine with that. But that's how I feel about the show,
It is super cool, and there's so many hidden gems on there when it comes in terms of matches and just promos and stuff that was happening on there. Honestly, like to have that extra little bit after SmackDowns when 205 was being filmed after SmackDowns is always super cool. Like I feel like it was in the time it was really, really exciting, especially someone that like grew up with like the cruiserweight division in WWE and then WCW, and like seeing that different style of wrestling along with the main event stuff of wrestling too. Like it was always good to get a variety in it, and I felt like it brought that variety. And I think it's going to be sorely missed soon when people realize like, oh man, we wish we had a division like that again. And that division that you guys
never. I mean, they could always
never say never, but it was stacked for sure. During your time there, though, when you were doing the no-fly zone character, the PowerPoint presentations, and all that stuff was going on, I was curious because I always thought, I'm like, oh, it'd be cool if you got more people on board with you on this campaign. If you were at this, looking back, obviously hindsight being 2020, but like if you could have had a couple of people that would have joined you in like a stable or a faction to help you promote this message, is there anyone that comes to your mind that would have fit in perfectly with that, or you feel like you've been converted?
No, I feel like a lot of people like did work with me to kind of better 205 Live, even if they had their own agenda. It just had to work out cohesively. Obviously, Mike is one of them. But no, like right from the get-go, like it was like me, Tony Nese, Arya Daivari, Jack Gallagher, Noam Dar. We would travel together. Ali would jump in with us, and like Cedric would be there too as well, even though he was one of our enemies at the time. But like whether we were, bundled up with Enzo or a part of like, helping my character stick out, or we're working with Brian Kendrick, we all kind of stuck together in some way. If I was going to go outside and recruit people, obviously I'd pick Brock Lesnar. I think he'd be number one. A safer environment. I think he would get the message across very effectively. Roman Reigns would be a nice pick too, I believe, to get that message across. Bobby Lashley, of course. I think those guys could deliver a very powerful message for a safer and less gaudy 205 Live.
I agree. I feel that.
Yeah. Oh man, safe and sound, feet on the ground. We already know this message.
Oh yeah, they all know it too. They all know it very well.
Another question that we kind of touched on it a little bit earlier is that you debuted in WWE as a part of the Cruiserweight Classic. And then that tournament itself was so like huge at the time because that was really WWE's first tournament in quite some time. That was really kind of like out there. And it includes so many people. So can you kind of talk to us about like what was it like kind of working with these names like a TJP, like a Kota Ibushi, even like people like Zack Sabre Jr. and all these kind of different types of cruiserweights that were on there?
Well, many of those people I had worked with prior to on the independents and some. I think the only one I really hadn't worked with was Grand Metalik, Mascara Dorada. So I was a fan of his work in Mexico, being such a tremendous high flyer. You know, even though it's against every bone in my body for him to be a high flyer. But no, I was just amazed at his like precision, you know. So that was really cool getting to work with him and meet him. Kenta later on was another one who came through as Hideo Itami. That was very big for us as a group because we all looked up to him. But you know, the Cruiserweight Classic, it was pretty cool. It was nice to see like a lot of guys I knew who like maybe hadn't even gotten to do as much as I had done on the independents kind of get their recognition, which was really neat. It was cool. Like I got to wrestle Zach, which was fun to do that in a WWE ring, which was bizarre. Yeah. I met him years ago when WXW it started working with Combat Zone Wrestling a long time, like right when that relationship started. And, you know, so to have like someone like that who I'm friends with, come in and get to do that kind of a match later on in our careers is just really sick. And that was really fun. And then like Brian Kendrick, someone who I look up to and knew from Evolve and wrestling out in California. But he's also like a veteran coming back. Yeah, this is a lot of cool stuff, man. We had Tajiri in the Cruiserweight division.
Yeah.
So cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. A lot of really cool stuff got to go down. Oni Lorcan, who like I was friends with, we had a rivalry on the independents.
Yeah.
He was in NXT at the time and then would, you know, occasionally get brought in as a guest and then finally a full-time member of the 205 Live roster. Yeah. A lot of good stuff going on there.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, you saw a lot of great names like you mentioned before. I felt like too that the Cruiserweight Classic was like truly something that was different and like a hidden gem. You know what I mean? Because it was definitely something that you couldn't really see anywhere else.
Yeah, it was the first of its kind, you know, and like aside from like maybe a New Japan tournament where they would kind of highlight their guys and then bring in international talent, or like maybe a Pro Wrestling Guerrilla, like a Battle of Los Angeles kind of thing. Wasn't really anything else like that, or like WXW does the 14 or the 16 karat gold. So those tournaments do exist, but never on like WWE just doing one.
And it gave opportunities to a lot of people that we might not have seen in the WWE. Look how successful a lot of the Ciampas, the Garganos, yourself, Ali, and all the stuff you guys are still doing. Like that all came through the Cruiserweight Classic, so it was a really cool period. I'm gonna take one of Mike's questions here, but the next thing we were gonna ask was that you know, you had that great angle where you worked with Daniel Bryan. And you guys are working on it. And it almost seemed like the perfect pairing because I was like, oh, these two guys, like I would believe that these two guys would out wrestle anybody. So how was that experience working with Daniel Bryan? And was there any advice he gave you while you were working with him, while you were under his ring?
I mean, I don't know if he would just give me like specific advice. It was great working with him. You know, the first time I'd met him was at the Cruiserweight Classic. He was doing commentary at the time. He wasn't wrestling. He was injured.
He was still retired. Yeah.
Yeah, he's still retired. And then he became the general manager for a little bit. And I don't know, we would just talk backstage about things. And, you know, we never were like, man, we should wrestle one day. But it was just like we had a common, you know, interest in all of that. So we would talk about that and, you know, all the stuff that he's interested in and or I'm interested in. We would share, you know, just kind of stories and stuff. A fun story that I'm going to share is the day before he wrestled at WrestleMania, I believe. What was the match? It was him and Shane McMahon versus Sami Zayn.
Kevin Owens and Sami. Yeah.
So the day before he was getting ready for that match, he had never been in the ring since he was injured. He asked me to come down to the practice ring and train with him for an hour or 2 hours. Or that's the first time I actually got in the ring with him.
Wow.
but it's just kind of like really cool that like later we'd get to be this kind of team on TV, and he had the concept of me being his trainer, which is the flip side of what you would expect him being experienced. So yeah, that's a really fun little like full circle moment. Getting to work with him was awesome. He's a great wrestler, and I wish we could do it again. You know, like
and we never did you guys wrestle a lot on the, because we saw you guys wrestle once in that Intercontinental title tournament, but it's like we never got to see you guys.
It was just the match at Extreme Rules or Elimination Chamber.
Yeah, that was the one I think of. Yeah, I think it was Elimination Chamber.
Philadelphia, right? Which is my hometown. You know, a very important town for Brian. He used to live there too, and wrestle there quite a bit, of course. So getting to have that match there was cool, but it was our first time ever really having a match. So like, you're still trying to feel each other out. It's never going to be like super, you know, cohesive all the time, which can make for an awesome, exciting story. Which there were some moments in that match that did happen that were because of that. But then I feel like our match in that Intercontinental tournament was maybe even like more enjoyable for, you know, for different reasons. Like in that match, we did not touch the ropes at all. We didn't punch or kick each other or do any striking. It was just all grappling and it was really just pure wrestling. And like to do that on a SmackDown is like really kind of like you never see anything like that. And that was really fun. You know, and business wise, there's a lot of stuff going on at that time. It was really special for me to kind of get in there with him. But yeah, that was it. It was the only two times we've ever linked up on the independents. The timing just never was there. Yeah.
And it was
where we are now.
I specifically remember that SmackDown match, and I think it was because of that, because it was a very like pure. That's why I was like, they seem like they probably have like a common mindset when it comes to like what they enjoy in wrestling and what they enjoy about wrestling. So seeing you two work together, I was like, oh, this kind of works, you know, because it feels like you guys would like enjoy the same things and the smaller intricacies that others might, you know. So that's always like the combination of you two.
Thanks, man.
Yeah, and just to point out a little bit before I get into this next question, the promos that you and Daniel had when they had those little virtual training sessions were phenomenal. Like, was there like a creative idea behind that? Because that was awesome.
Most of that was us just like trying to figure out something to do at last minute. And just playing off each other, really. But like, there were, you know, everything got turned upside down, you know, when the pandemic started. And we did go from live audiences to recording in the Performance Center. So it would be interesting to see what it would have become had that not happened. But, you know, we took what we had and we ran with it the best we could.
Yeah, because that was a question. Like, was there a long-term plan for that? Or was it like just it ended when it ended because of the situation?
It's hard to say there's a long-term plan for anything. But
fair enough.
There are definitely plenty of ideas, and some of them happen, some of them don't necessarily happen. I don't want to give them all away.
Fair enough. You also got to work Cesaro at WrestleMania there. That it was the pandemic WrestleMania, but you did get to work Cesaro. How was that whole experience? And the
super surreal. Yeah, Cesaro I've known since I started wrestling. You know, back in the independent days at Chikara, and just like that, like. They were kind of putting stuff together, you know. It was awful. Like everybody really wanted, you know, to have WrestleMania. It's like the biggest weekend for everybody. It's super fun, and like that's what everybody works towards. So for them to just kind of be like, all right, we're still gonna do it, but you know, we got to change up some stuff. So it just happened to work out. We're like, me and him were paired up opposite on the rosters, and they needed a match to go on the kickoff show, and they called us in. We wrestled, and I had my WrestleMania debut against Cesaro, who I've known forever. It was really nice, you know, really nice. Plus, he's excellent. So like anytime I get to wrestle him is
it was a great match. If people haven't checked that out, make sure you guys go check that out. And honestly, as a spectator and a fan, like. It was really really appreciative, if I can speak on behalf of the fans, that the show still did go on and we had something to look forward to for those 2 days, because it's like it was a weird time, but I was like, at least they're still putting on WrestleMania. Like we're still getting you know. And after it was all said and done, I was like, man, we got to forget about everything else that was going on for like 2 nights because we got to look forward to WrestleMania. So thank you guys for doing that, of course.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, so going to the next question, I know we talked a little bit about 205 Live earlier, and how much it's special to you. Was there how was it like having Triple H's influence on 205 Live? Because I felt like, as a spectator looking in as well, that 205 Live really had the NXT feel when it came to every single show. So what was it like having that influence of Triple H?
It was excellent. Like, he, as a creative director, he's like very creative, really. Like, he has amazing ideas and is very good at orchestrating them in a way that they're easy to understand, and to make stuff stand out, and to kind of sit under his learning tree directly for, I don't know, at least the first few months of my WWE run, and then kind of move forward with that relationship was super rewarding. His vision was to take that Cruiserweight Classic concept, where it was pretty much like a sport oriented feel, and turn that into a brand, most of that vision stuck. A lot of it got modified and changed and just kind of grew over time, which is what happens when you're running a show that's, it doesn't have an end date, a start or an end date, and it just keeps, it lives. It's a living, breathing thing.
Right.
Like, stuff gets thrown at it, it changes, it reacts, it grows, it takes weird turns sometimes, and that's really the kind of a show that it is. So yeah, his ideas were great, and they were a lot of fun to work with and try to make happen.
Is there anybody you haven't worked with yet that you're like itching to work with?
Yeah, Brock Lesnar, Roman Reigns, Bobby Lashley. All my campaign guys.
Oh, your campaign guys. Well, that's good to know. I mean, honestly, like, a match with you and Bobby Lashley could be a lot better than people might expect. Like, there could be some great wrestling in that as well. Same with Brock, same with Roman Reigns. Like,
I do know.
You do know, yeah. Lastly, if I can,
Roman Reigns has been ducking me for years, man.
I know. You're right there. I saw you on TV this week. You just ducking you. But the last question I want to ask, and I like to ask this question, especially because there's a lot of people that follow me specifically that are either training to become wrestlers or breaking into the business or just trying to do something with wrestling. So I would like to ask you, if you could talk to your younger self who was breaking into the business, what would you tell them right now? So
straight up to like my younger self, I would say get more into the lifting stuff in the gym, because I feel like having the extra strength on the frame would help prevent certain injuries that may happen to you in the future that you're not expecting right now. So that's the biggest thing, I think, and I think that should hold true for a lot of independent wrestlers too, who like are young and getting into it now. A lot of them don't take the physicality side of it as seriously as they should, and I really wish that they could at least, have a small routine dedicated to, either getting to the gym or doing a workout at home or learning some bodybuilding techniques or, something like that. I'd say there's a large percentage of them that, beyond just like the aesthetics of it, really just focus on like the safety, of having that kind of experience, and, find some enjoyment in that too for your body and your health reasons.
No, 100%. Yeah, I think that's great advice for anyone that's listening to this, looking to get into it. Like, focus on all aspects of the training and what will be beneficial for you in the long run. Is there anything else you would like to add, Mike?
You know what? I think, now that I'm thinking about it, I think one question that I'm actually interested in particular is that, so Drew has been world famous for his theme songs. Of course, he's had Totally Drew. He's had the campaign one, and of course the new one, which is called Faded. Which has been your favorite in WWE thus far?
I think Fade's the coolest one.
Okay.
Yeah, that's the newest one. So it's been interesting. They gave me, what was the first song at the Cruiserweight Classic? I think it was called About Time or something like that. I forget the song. It was a weird, they just threw it out there. I think Triple H watched the video and said this will work for him, and that was it. And then when 205 Live became a thing, they asked all of us what they wanted for our music, and they made us all custom tracks. So I was like, oh, cool. Here's this heavy metal song I used on the Indies from Nico Vega. Yeah. Oh, here's this Taylor Dane song I used. That's like this this completely different sound, and they just combined everything, and that's when they just called it Totally Drew because they couldn't think of like what it was.
That's actually pretty clever. They combined everything and just called it Totally Drew.
Yeah. And then the campaign music was that was actually really cool. There's like this newsroom sound to it in the background, like with these drums going on and these horns. And that was based off of a track that I used in Combat Zone Wrestling when I was doing the campaign for a better Combat Zone. So I sent them that music, and they modified it, made a WWE version of that. The Fade song is I think that is my favorite. Just like they nailed it right on the first try too. I didn't have to edit it, nothing. And that was based off of kind of this vaporwave soundtrack that I had found for a Volkan compilation. If you're familiar with Volkan, who's this amazing wrestler from Rings in early 1990s, he's a sambo fighter. He's a legendary sambo fighter. But anyway, that kind of music like fit that style and vibe of what I was going for at the time. And it didn't take much. They nailed it right on the first go.
That's
and like
awesome. That's awesome.
Yeah, it's cool because like that song actually does bring a lot of energy. And so like when I hear that go off and it sounds around the arena, I'm just like boom, right in the zone, and then I can go do my thing.
Now, like how important is that to like have that music and the whole presentation like
it has to be right.
It has to be right.
Yeah. I have a friend named Yolanda who helps me with design stuff, and she's like she's a male fashion designer, and we've had her over the years help with my students and making sure their presentation is cohesive. And like she likes to say, like it just has to make sense. It's that simple. It just has to make sense. And like so. That's from the look, from the visuals and the sound and what you do as a performer. Like everything has to fit together cohesively. So that song like is a perfect way to tie everything together and make it easy for me and the audience to understand what's about to happen.
No, 100%. I agree. I think even as fans, like if it gets the song, if you hear the song and it gets you amped, like you're intrigued, you're invested. Like the total package is everything.
Yep.
That's awesome. Yeah, no, that's a good question, Mike. There you go. Look at Sock.
Yeah, I'm a huge theme song guy. I'm sorry.
Fair enough. Thank you for doing this again. We really appreciate you having
us
coming on. It was our pleasure. It was an honor to have you on. Definitely a privilege, and hopefully we can do this again sometime down the road.
Yeah, that'd be great. Thank you so much, man.
Was there anything else you want to add? Do you want to let people know where to find you on social media?
I'm pretty easy to find on social media, just at Drew Gulak. I have a TikTok, apparently. I'm at Gabba Gulak on that one.
Oh, wow. Do you make TikToks?
No, but I have 8,000 followers, so hey, come on in.
Are you planning to make a TikTok?
Planning is a strong word. So I don't know. We'll see. It's there just in case some idea pops up. And
I mean, some people would die to have those 8,000 followers on TikTok. I
understand. I don't want to take it for granted. I don't want to let you down.
Maybe if we can ever meet in person, I can get you and Mike to do a TikTok together. And
if it's that easy, then yeah, we can.
We can come up with something. I'm pretty sure. I'm good at that content creating thing. But no, it was a pleasure having you on. Thank you very, very much. Looking forward to see everything that you're going to do moving forward. And yeah, it was a great conversation. I try to keep it casual,
Yeah. Thank you so much, Justin. Thank you, Mike. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
And we'll keep doing the thing, everybody. We'll see you all next time. Ooh, yeah.
Oh.
Dig it.
Macho man.
It comes out at the end.
We sincerely appreciate your patronage and hope we've succeeded in bringing you an enjoyable evening of entertainment. Please drive home carefully and come back again soon. Good night.